F100 Nation, Episode 6. Craig with River City Rods and Fabrication. Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Today's episode, we've got Craig from River City Rods and Fabrication out of Iowa. Had a chance to catch up with him a little bit about his build that he's taken to SEMA that truly is one of a kind, as well as, chat with him a little bit about, some of the other projects that he's done in the past and the direction he's going in. So before we hop into the podcast here, want to say thank you to the Performance Syndicate Co., for supporting the podcast here. I know they've got a really cool giveaway going on right now. So if you want to get in on that, it's head over to thepsco.com. Every $5 spent on their website, whether it be on t-shirts or parts or lighting or whatever, get you entered to win a 1987 C10 two-wheel drive short bed. They've done a lot to it. So head over to their website, check it out, support those guys who are supporting the podcast. And so let's get into it.
All right, guys, so we got Craig from River City Rods and Fabrication on, and super excited to talk to him about his B100 build that he's melting the internet with. So what's up, Craig?
Not too much. Yourself?
I'm doing really good, man. So, I came across the rendering that you have for your B100, and I was like, man, I have to get this guy on the podcast. I have to hear about this build. I have to hear more about what he's got going on. And so, I appreciate you, being willing to come on and tell us a little bit about your history, what you got going on with your SEMA build, and a little bit about yourself.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity. This B100 kind of come across us a little bit in an odd way. I was on Facebook, and I noticed that Casey from the old Gas Monkey Garage had this thing for sale. And lucky enough, I ended up I was communicating with him a little bit on some other stuff, and I kind of jumped right on the horn because it was kind of an exciting thing because, it's so hard to come across and build something that somebody's either not done something with or, just trying to create the oddity that excites people, and especially going to SEMA with it.
So it started its life out, it's blue and black, right?
Yeah. It's got a blue and it's a light blue and a dark blue is what it is. And I think actually, to be honest with you, the thing actually started off as white in color. I don't even think that this thing is such an odd duck because even if you look at the normal B100s, this thing's got a bad forehead like an ugly girl on it. It is just the roof line is just kind of horrendous a little bit. And the other B100s I've seen don't have this.
Really?
Yeah, so I don't know what the deal is if, because these B100s, what's interesting about these B100s is they're basically a pickup truck that they kind of morphed into this thing is what it is. Because if you look, this is actually a cab of a truck, and then they actually make the back half of this a wood bed. There was just all kinds of things that they changed up on this truck big time.
Wow, that's really interesting. So I saw the rendering of it. Before we jump too far into it, man, tell me a little bit about yourself, a little bit about, your fabrication company and what you got going on up there, because it looks like you do a ton of killer builds.
Well, I appreciate it. Mainly, we've, as far as that goes, we've always had, Chevrolet has always been kind of near and dear to me. So going the Ford route, and it's kind of funny because we're doing a 58 Ford for LST, and then, which will, it'll be done in the next couple of weeks. And then we jump right into this B100, but everything else that we've done prior to this has been pretty much Chevrolet stuff, and it's not anything more than, it's been, kind of our background, but the other side is the popularity of all this stuff in the truck market itself. So we're kind of chasing the truck dream because not only is it, I mean, they probably are a little easier to sell right now in the way that, what's going on with them, but just the people that are involved with the truck market is just phenomenal. I mean, and I appreciate the fact that you're taking the time to, have somewhat of an interest of what we got going on, because we're just astounded by, how great some of these guys are that are out there, and, and we just enjoy every bit of it, so we've kind of gotten our 15 minutes of fame, and we're about on minute 14.
Well, I find that hard to believe, man, because what you got going on it's really cool. I mean, that camper that you have built, and was that a C30 that you guys have with that camper truck? I mean, tell me a little bit about that build. I mean,
so the way that came about is we had been to SEMA in 2016, and we got kind of noticed on Instagram is what happened. We were coming back from a show, got noticed on Instagram by AccuAir, and AccuAir called us up and said, hey, listen, do you have an interest in bringing that truck? And we literally had a week span between when it had to be to SEMA and when we were coming back from North Carolina. And the conversation went as, yeah, it'd be awesome, but we don't have anything AccuAir on this truck. And they're like, would you put it on? And so basically we got back into town on a Monday, coming from North Carolina, good guys, and changed everything out. And we were back on the road on Wednesday, Thursday to go out to SEMA to be there on Saturday. So it kind of solidified a few different things for us. Number one is that, with this going out to SEMA, the biggest thing is you always see this SEMA crunch, and you see these kinds of things. And so what happens is there's a lot of fails in that. And that's actually how we got in, is because there was a guy that couldn't make it, because he's pushing hard to get his truck done. And then here we sit, we have an opportunity to do it, and we jumped on it. And so it basically gave us the gateway for the following year to, then for me it was just throwing them different ideas of a lot of different things and saying, hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And they bid on the camper. The camper was a 28,000 original mile truck, and then we tore the whole thing apart. And if you follow us on Instagram at all, you can see step by step of what we did. I mean, we had this thing basically down to sticks.
Dude, it's cool. Like, I'm definitely a Ford guy, but I can just appreciate cool trucks and cool rigs in general, and that thing is righteous.
I really appreciate it. And, we ended up, and, it was kind of funny because, for those that are familiar with, Delmo and his truck scene that he's got going on, he's got a variety too, and he basically, as we're heading out there, he's like, dude, you ready for this? And, you kind of, it's one of those things where you don't think twice about it. He's like, no, yeah, I'm ready for SEMA. We're kind of excited. And he goes, no, the truck, and it really was something that I completely did not expect at all. And I mean, we had, they shot commercials from Discovery in it with Dave Kindig, and we had Richard Rawlings. Not only did he sit there and have a beer in our camper, but heck, he was ready to buy it. And it was just really surreal. And the harder part about the whole situation is going back into SEMA and trying to create that vibe again. I mean, you never will, I don't believe, but it's one of those things where you're more conscientious of it than you would have been prior to something like that.
Man, I think the direction that you're heading with this B100, I think that you're going to recreate that same excitement. I mean, I'm excited. Just a little bit that you've told me about the build has piqued my interest beyond belief. Like, here, tell me what your plans are there. What so let's all in.
We're moving with is we're going to actually have this thing so it's basically it's a tucked in dually. Where the old Chevrolets they ended up doing those fenders off to the outside of it and kind of give it that flare, and it kind of it kind of gave it a different look with those boxier dually fenders on there. So what we're going to take a look at attempting to do, and we're working with GSI, and they'll do the chassis for us, but we're actually going to put the dualies to the inside of this thing, and then we want to be able to turn 22 when this thing is laid out on the ground. So it's going to require us to narrow that front end up a bit with that dually front end on it and stuff, and so that we're kind of the preliminary, aspect of this thing, unless it looks just completely, the silliest thing we've ever done. We're going to go with that route. And then the other thing that we got to do is we're going to chop the top on this thing because it's got such the scale's not quite there. And so, there's just a lot of nuances that we're going to do. We're going to do a full billet grill on this thing, and we're going to change it up so it's kind of that more modern, new style Bronco front grill that you would see in maybe the early renderings of the little Bronco 2 coming out in 2018. There's just going to be such a variety of different things. And, the bad part about me and doing things is that I have a tendency to change up colors and have but you got to kind of go with the flow, because I think that projects can get very stagnant if you don't let the truck talk to you. And so we'll just have to see what this truck does as we go along.
That's really cool. I mean, that's next level. Being willing to tuck those duals up in there, and I think chopping the top's going to be a really cool idea. I just can't wait to see this evolve as you kind of go through the process of building it. And obviously, it sounds like you can move extremely quick when you want to on a build or when you need to. And man, that's going to be really cool to watch.
Well, when you think about, it was kind of funny because to the average person, when we were putting that camper together, we always felt like it was kind of two builds. We basically were building the house and we were building the truck, because we went so far with the camper. And the camper, basically we got that thing done in 6 months. And so I always say to myself that, if you can acquire and take care of something like that, like we did, I felt like anything else is going to be easy, because there was so many epic moments where we're having to take the body off and we're trying to do this and trying to do that. And, and you're doing that all with a piece of equipment that weighed 9,500 pounds. And it just had to come together when you're dealing with all that old crap, and then you're putting new siding. I mean, there's just a lot there. And so we're pretty confident of what we can do in a short amount of time, just because we've got the people. And then, because with any of these builds, what you're dealing with is a group of people that are getting all on the same page. It's no different than building a house, and that's our background. It's a construction background. So putting these things together is just kind of what we do on a daily basis and making things happen. So it'll be good.
I'm really, really excited. I mean, wow. So what's going to be, I mean, I don't know how much you can divulge or whatever you're willing to put out there, but, have you guys picked a power plant for it yet?
Yeah, we've been going back and forth. I mean, the Ford purists, definitely want to see the Coyote aspect of it. We want to go with something that would be a supercharged engine. I think we're going to throw a few spins on this thing. We're going to do something that will be a 429-esque type head, the old, we've been looking at doing something like a kind of like a retro valve cover setup on these things where the old 429s, it was like an experimental cover that they put on there. So we'll do some of that stuff to kind of give it that old nostalgic look, and not necessarily the Coyote or whatever we go with on a motor, just because of the fact that we kind of like to throw it for a loop. And we did the same thing with the camper where we did an LS, and we made and designed our own 409 valve cover system on there, and it it was that kind of thing. It fit in with the nostalgia of the truck, and yet it gave that modern power plant, because we've learned that people are more intrigued and have a tendency to want to buy or do more with these newer power plants just because of the reliability and what's out there.
No question. I mean, not having to deal with a carburetor and being able to walk out and turn it on like it's a, brand new vehicle, but still have that retro look, definitely is appealing.
Yeah, and I think the thing is when you go to SEMA, I feel like that you've got to go there with your A game, and I think that you've got to try to definitely think outside the box a little bit, because there's so much stiff competition. There's so many people that want to be there, and if you're going to try and solidify each year of you actually being there and having the capabilities of being there, you really got to throw some curveballs at it, because, we won't ever compete with somebody like a Troy Trepagna or, or any of these guys or Dave Kindig. But the thing is I think what we're trying to build is for the average guy, and I say that loosely because there's not everybody. We'll do this build, and we're going to be somewhere around $125,000 to $150,000 to build this truck, and that's not for everybody. But by the same token, the guy that's spending $500,000 to $1 million on a car with those guys, we're hoping to appeal to that market that's less, but there's a guy with some money that wants to run with us. We currently don't have anybody that's running with us right now on this project. So, we're actively looking. And I think that, what we've done is we've hired a marketing company to basically put our program out there. And the program is this. I mean, we want to have people feel like that, they're going to have something completely different, but yet they're going to have something that is not going to cost them an arm and a leg to show off and then maybe even continue to, raise in dollars.
Man, I think that's really smart because you're going to, like you said, you're opening up that market to where those guys that roll with those crowds of guys that are a little bit more of a high roller, and they can show up and their buddies are going to be like, what is that? Where did you pick that up?
Right.
And still have that same level.
Well, the thing is, too, is when you go to when you look at these builds that these guys are doing, and I don't care who it is, anymore between all the billet and all those different things that people are doing, to do one-off pieces, you're building projects that have $500,000 in them, and then go take it to Barrett Jackson, and you're lucky if you get $200,000 to $300,000. What our goal is to basically build something of the caliber of those things, and maybe get people to spend the $100,000 to $150,000. And potentially in a year, after they get done messing around with it, or maybe they keep it a while, who knows? But to escalate in price as opposed to deflate, that's our goal.
Man, that's I think that's spot on. That's a great way to approach this. Dude, I can't tell you how excited I was to get you on here for this. So I'm just throw that out there. I mean, like, I've been antsy about this interview all week.
Well, we appreciate it, man. I mean, the thing is that this market and the truck market in itself, and I'll be honest with you, I mean, the Fords and the Dodges and all these different trucks that are, out there that aren't the C10s, you guys are just, I'll be honest with you, you're just chomping at the bit for the next opportunity. And I really feel, somebody like an Aaron Kaufman who's, he's tackling that market. Everybody knows that this is the next great thing to happen, and the beauty of these trucks is they're so underdone right now at this point, and there's so many opportunities for them. We found with the C10 market, the guys, like I said, you can't find a better group of guys, but I think that these guys are all exhausted to figure out what can we do, and all those, that's why we build a utility bed truck, and everybody, oh my God, and then you build a camper. I mean, and this stuff isn't rocket science. This is all the stuff we grew up with, we work with, we do with, and the beauty of the Fords is that right now there are so many things that haven't been made for that truck, and that market's going to go crazy here in a bit.
Well, I know I speak for everybody when I say we're ready for it, because having something that's easier to bolt on where you're not having to go crazy and do something, nutty for fabrication, for the general guy working in his garage, wanting to customize, I think that's going to be a really big deal.
Well, there's so many diehards that are out there. I mean, the Ford guys are probably a little harder core than the average even Chevy guy, because those guys are like, hey, what were we, number one selling truck for how many years? I mean, for crying out loud, how come you didn't do us first, kind of thing. So I think everybody's I think this is going to be a good thing, and I think this year coming up for SEMA and maybe the following year is going to be a big Ford year.
And from what I can tell and what I'm kind of seeing, funneling around through social media, I think you're hitting that right on the head. I mean, a lot of dent sides are going, which really surprises me. I mean, I figured, there'd be a lot more 60s trucks because there's a lot of parts and aftermarket pieces for those trucks versus some of these, 73 to 79 and whatnot. I mean, you really have to customize to get those things to where you want them.
That's the thing is that you're going into trucks that are what has really been done with them. The bulk of that truck has been synonymously four-wheel drives, and that market is huge. And, you see SEMA, I mean, there's literally between American Force and anybody else that's out there in the front. I mean, that is what takes over SEMA. And, the harder part about it is as many trucks as there were out there, try and find some good clean stuff. I mean, that is the harder part about this whole thing in these trucks. And so, not only are you going to find a situation where these people are going to want to build them, but the guys that have the good parts, they're going to get some good money out of this stuff. So, you got to kind of rally around it a little bit because they've earned, their place. That's for sure.
Man, right on. So what's the next step? Where are you headed with the B100 now? I mean, have you started working on it yet?
So no, we won't. So what we're doing right now is we're solidifying our sponsors that kind of want to run with us. So we've been very fortunate. We hired a marketing group, a performance marketing group, and basically what they're doing is they're just kind of branding us a little bit because when we went to SEMA, the one thing that we noticed was that SEMA's looking, or not necessarily SEMA, but the car market's looking for the next quote-unquote Richard Rawlings. And what does that mean? I guess it basically means that they're looking for the next guy that makes, creates an image. And then the other side is that for these people that are, vending at SEMA, the one thing that social media has done is made it so it's a lot easier, but yet a lot harder for somebody to, go with their products. I mean, every time that, we try to, when we went to market with these things, the first time we couldn't get a single person to have an interest in us. When we did the utility bed truck, as far as getting, free parts and things of that sort. And it's not necessarily all about the free parts, but it's just that recognition didn't quite come. Well, then we go to, we're going into the second year, we got a little bit more with the camper. And we feel like this year we're going to, especially since we're putting this marketing plan together, because what these different vendors want to see is that their product's actually out there and what is your influence to the market. And we feel like that if we can go out there, make a difference, and, and then potentially, go out there and maybe, capture the eyes of getting a TV show and doing those kinds of things. Those are the things that we're kind of marketing ourselves for as a company, and then just trying to build cool stuff along with it so that way it keeps that threshold.
Man, that's extremely smart. I mean, definitely companies, from what I could tell are looking for the best ROI, and social media right now is where they're going to get the most bang for their buck with visibility, aside from television.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have magazines anymore, and so, and then you have these, you have icons within the, within the truck, car world, whatever they are. So what you want to do is, they want to surround themselves with that, and products, as an example, we do with I Did It. And I Did It is really on this big marketing campaign right now where they're saying I did it with I Did It. And so what they want to just see, because if you look at their social media site prior to probably a month ago, I mean, we had more the first week we come out of SEMA than they did. And I'm not real familiar with how long they've had it out there, but now that they've created this marketing campaign and they want to get that exposure, it's going up by the day as far as what they are, they're dealing with. And it's all because of you and me and everybody else that's out there, and, people like Delmo and Dino and all these guys that are just basically the icons within the group of people that are just trying to just do the cool stuff, and so they're looking to everybody to try and sell their product because that isn't out there anymore. The magazines aren't out there no more, and every time that we can promote or we can do something with them, everybody's a happier place.
Yeah, absolutely. That's That's right on. That's spot on. So do you have some, I mean, I know it's iffy and hard to talk about, you know, in the beginning, but do you have some partners that you guys have definitely got lined out that you're going to be working with on this build that, you know, you might recommend some of, you know, our listeners and people like that to go check out for, you know, their dent side projects or whatever they might be working on?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, somebody who has, you know, always been right there with us. I mean, we've had a few, but, you know, GSI was basically, you know, when we went out last year with the camper, those guys didn't, you know, I mean, they knew who we were, but, you know, just from a little bit, but we sent them guys a front suspension, and they're out of Arizona. Sent them a suspension from Davenport, Iowa, and these people came through like there's no other, you know, and they created this whole complete suspension that allowed us to have the first product that was out there for these 1 tons. But more importantly is that it was just it was a great relationship because you have to be able to count on people. I mean, and when, you know, and maybe, you know, in some cases, when you're doing this type of stuff, maybe there isn't these, you know, everyday critical deadlines, but for builders there are, because for them, their customers have demands that change, you know, drastically. Maybe it's they want a car show that they want to go to, or a truck show, or maybe it's, you know, all of a sudden, you know, something's starting to get some wheels on it, and now they've got some interest, and maybe they can go to SEMA. So what we try to do is align ourselves with some people that actually know exactly what we have to have as far as timelines and deadlines and stuff like that, precision replacement parts. You know, those guys are another one that you'll see at SEMA this year that are really actively trying to get that Ford market in many different ways. And you'll see that, you know, they won't, to my knowledge, they aren't going to have any Chevrolets in their booth. They're going to have Fords this year. And because they know that that's the next thing coming. So, you know, Falcon Tires, we've just had such a great opportunity, and it's all because of social media. So what I would tell anybody that, you know, is out there, that you need to really, you know, if you're proud of it, put it out there. You know, I mean, and the beauty of the car market is you're always going to have some douchebags. You're always going to have somebody that's going to have some kind of bad comment or, you know, thought or something like that. But you've got to keep pushing, because that's what this whole market of vehicles has been. You know, Barris. Look at the stuff that I always use him in correlation. I mean, you look at that stuff, and you know, to the guy that's building a car, oh my God, this stuff was horrendous. But the guy was one of those guys that really made customizing cool, you know, and so that's why I don't feel like that there's anything that's that dumb. We all know there are things that are out there, but you've really got to stand behind the fact of the creativity and the thought process that somebody has when they're doing something.
There's always something good to appreciate in every build, regardless if it's your flavor or not.
Yep, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I mean, that is what makes everybody such an individual. You know, there may be a guy that likes aluminum slots, and the next guy thinks that's the dumbest wheel ever made. But the bottom line is it's your style, and that's you can't drift away from that.
Absolutely. And I really, really appreciate you coming on. You know, if you're willing, I'd love to circle back around with you before SEMA, you know, maybe once or twice, because, you know, it's obviously going to evolve a lot over the next, you know, 9 months?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, we would love to, because, you know, the thing is that what we want to do is that, you know, one thing that's interesting about this is that things like this have a tendency to, you know, help us out as well, because what ends up being is, hey, we'll get stuff, you know, via mail all the time, you know, hey, I got this, or can you help me with that? And I think the thing is that I think if we all help each other out a little bit and we kind of push to this, I think it just ends up making a better marketplace for everybody. And you know, in a world where there's you know, such deception on these trucks and cars, and we're trying to buy them and sell them, if you can build this rapport, I mean, you know, an example for us is, you know, we met a lot of great people out at SEMA, you know, as Travis with CTP Concepts, and all these guys, Sam Kefnerovis, and the one thing that was always interesting to me is the knowledge and their thoughtfulness of just being able to just tell you anything you want to know, and it's not a secret, and don't be, just because a guy did this, don't be afraid to do that, because people, it's really a great market. So that's why we would love to come on here as many times as you'll have us, and we can talk about it and, talk about the marketplace for us as well.
Sounds great to me. It's pretty exciting. So, well, I definitely want to circle back around. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing a little bit about what you have in store. And like I said, I look forward to seeing how this thing progresses and what you do along the way.
Yeah, as far as following us on Instagram, we're going to be very active in getting a lot of stuff that's out there. I think a lot of guys like to keep their SEMA builds a little hush-hush. I have a tendency to like to talk a lot, so I don't have a problem with people, seeing what we've got, because I feel like that, we as builders are going to put something out there, and no two guys are going to build it the same way. And there's some things that we'll keep to ourselves, for a while. But follow us on River City Rods IA, and like I said, I'll give you as much information as I can, and answer any questions that anybody might have. And we just appreciate the opportunity to come into your guys' world, because the Chevrolet market has been something that we've been in for a while, and but the truck market, I think, is kind of a brotherhood in itself. So we enjoy it.
Wow, having Craig on the podcast was fantastic. Loved hearing about some of the past builds that he's done, the future builds that he's working on, take to SEMA. That B100 is going to be beautiful. He's also working on a 59 Ford for LST. So, excited to catch up with him after that event, hear what the response on that build was, and see if he came across anything really cool that we have to check out. If you want to see some of the builds that he's currently doing, head over to Instagram and check out River City Rods IA. Give him a follow, give him some likes, check out everything that he's got going on. It's really cool. He's a great guy, and extremely thankful to have had him on the podcast. This next week, we're going to have Shane Winstead talking about his build Green Machine. A little bit about that. He's got kind of a cool story. His dad originally had bought the truck. It escaped him here for a little while. He was able to find it again and go through the process of restoring it. So definitely tune in, check that out. And we'll catch you next time.